Okay, let's dive into this. Welcome to our explainer on Area 51, the dual timeline of myth and American military reality. Today we're looking way past those endless conspiracy theories to uncover the real, staggering engineering behind the world's most famous secret base. We're going to see how decades of top-secret military development accidentally spawned a massive science fiction empire. But more importantly, we're going to look at what's actually happening out there right now.
So I want you to ask yourself, what do you think is actually flying over the Nevada desert at this exact moment? It's so easy to get wrapped up in those old myths about alien autopsies and secret underground bunkers, right? But the present-day reality? It's honestly far more impressive than the fiction. Forget the Hollywood movies for a second, because the skies above this restricted airspace are incredibly busy today.
In fact, in just the last few years alone, there have been exactly 3 highly credible sightings of completely unknown aircraft. And we're not talking about blurry, unverified UFO reports here. We are talking about concrete glimpses caught by commercial satellites and high-end thermal cameras. This absolutely proves the base is more active than ever. But before we reveal what these 3 mystery aircraft actually are, we've got to understand how this intense multi-generational secrecy got started in the first place.
Section 1. Cold War at Paradise Ranch.
To really get the base today, we have to jump back to the mid-1950s. The Cold War is escalating, and the CIA and the U.S. Air Force needed a place so incredibly remote that they could test revolutionary aircraft without the Soviet Union or even the American public having a clue. So they picked a barren, totally unforgiving dry lake bed in Nevada called Groom Lake. But they had a massive problem. How on earth do you convince the absolute best aerospace engineers in the country to pack up their families and move to a desolate, dusty wasteland? Well, legendary Lockheed engineer Clarence Kelly Johnson had a genius marketing trick up his sleeve. He literally just nicknamed this harsh facility Paradise Ranch to make it sound like an amazing place to work. It's pretty funny when you think about it, branding a restricted, scorching desert basin as some sort of tropical getaway just to lure in top-tier talent. And you know what? The workers who went along with it actually started calling themselves ranch hands.
And boy did those ranch hands deliver. The American military brilliance at this single facility birthed the most revolutionary aircraft of the entire 20th century. First up, we had the U-2 spy plane in 1955, designed to fly completely silently at 70,000 feet. Then came the A-12 OXCART in 1962, which was the predecessor to the famous SR-71 Blackbird. And by 1977, they were testing the Have Blue prototype, which eventually led directly to the F-117 Nighthawk, the world's very first operational stealth fighter.
But getting these machines into the air? That required absolute, unbelievable secrecy. I mean, you can't just fly a massive, unannounced prototype out of an airport in Burbank, California. Take the A-12 OXCART, for example. The military literally had to pack the disassembled fuselage into a gigantic 105-foot-wide crate and truck it across the desert. They were secretly out there removing highway signs, trimming trees, and leveling road banks in the dead of night just to physically fit the transport through. They even went as far as flying public decoy versions of the plane out of California just to keep everyone's eyes away from Nevada.
Section 2. Birth of a sci-fi icon. Now, you can't test wildly futuristic aircraft in the sky for decades without people eventually looking up. And this is exactly where the very real, hyper-secret engineering accidentally sparked a massive, global science fiction phenomenon. Now, what's really interesting about this slide is the sheer irony of the whole situation. The CIA themselves actually admitted that their own highly classified test flights of the U-2 and the A-12 accounted for over half of all UFO reports during the late 50s and 60s. Think about it. The military was flying these gleaming silver high-altitude jets at speeds and heights that no one even thought were physically possible. So to a civilian on the ground, it absolutely looked like alien technology. And this crazy atmosphere of intense secrecy perfectly primed the public for the infamous claims of Bob Lazar back in 1989. On Las Vegas television, Lazar claimed he actually worked at a subsidiary of Area 51 and that they were reverse engineering alien saucers powered by a stable isotope of element 115. It's an incredibly thrilling story, and it completely ignited public curiosity. But when we look at the hard scientific reality, it paints a totally different picture. See, in 23, scientists actually managed to synthesize element 115, which we now know as moscovium. And rather than being this stable, magical spacecraft fuel, isotopes of element 115 are highly unstable. They literally decay in just a few hundred milliseconds.
But honestly, by the 1990s, those scientific facts didn't really matter to pop culture anyway. Area 51 was already cemented as a Hollywood icon. These conspiracy theories morphed into a massive entertainment industry. They inspired blockbuster films like Independence Day in 1996, comedies like Men in Black and Paul, and it even sparked that massive viral Storm Area 51 internet movement back in 2019. Essentially, Area 51 had become a permanent cultural mirror for our imaginations, reflecting everything we fear and wonder about the unknown.
Section 3. The Secret Daily Commute.
So while the rest of the world was busy making movies about alien autopsies, real people still had to go to work every day. But you can't exactly drive your Honda Civic up to a top-secret black site every morning, right? Instead, the military essentially runs its own private, highly classified airline. It's known as JANET, which stands for Joint Air Network for Employee Transportation. It's been operating since 1973, and it is the absolute logistical lifeline of the base.
If you are ever hanging out at the Las Vegas airport, take a look across from the commercial terminals. You might actually spot their fleet. They use these unmarked, white Boeing 737-600s with just a single red stripe running along the side. These planes fly multiple times a day directly from Vegas to Groom Lake and other restricted ranges. And here's a pretty wild fact. Even the civilian flight attendants who are just serving coffee on these 737s, they are required to pass rigorous government background checks and hold top-secret security clearances.
Section 4. The Next Generation of Stealth.
Let's move to and see how this builds into the present day, because the thousands of employees stepping off those JANET flights are definitely not working on museum pieces. They are testing the future. Remember those 3 recent sightings I mentioned at the very beginning of this explainer? Well, thanks to commercial satellites and civilian thermal cameras, we actually have a record of what these brilliant engineers have been up to. In 2022, a Delta Wing prototype was spotted. In 2025, the RAT-55 testbed was filmed. And in 2026, a mysterious triangular Dorito aircraft was caught in the dark. Let's break these down one by one.
First up, in January 2022, commercial satellite imagery accidentally captured an absolute shocker. A sleek, 60-foot tailless Delta Wing prototype was sitting completely out in the open on the Area 51 tarmac. Aviation analysts immediately noted its forward-swept, super-organic design with absolutely no vertical tail fins. And that specific design language, it screams maximum stealth. The leading theory right now is that this is a demonstrator for the Air Force's next-generation air dominance program, basically the heavily classified 6th-generation fighter meant to ultimately replace the F-22 Rapture. Then, skip to August 2025. A photographer situated 26 miles away on a public mountain peak managed to film the RAT-55 performing touch and goes. This is a heavily modified Boeing 737 just bristling with radar arrays. Now, this isn't a fighter jet. Instead, you can think of it as a giant flying quality control tool. It literally flies right alongside classified stealth prototypes and measures their radar signatures in real time. They do this to guarantee these planes are completely invisible before they ever go on a real mission. Seeing it taxi into the massive Hangar 18 at Groom Lake confirmed that Area 51 is still exactly where America's stealth is perfected.
And that brings us to the most suspenseful sighting yet. In January 2026, at 3 in the morning, a photographer pointed a thermal camera straight up into the pitch-black Nevada sky. What he recorded was a silent, sharply angled, triangular flying wing just moving effortlessly through the restricted airspace. It had 0 markings and emitted absolutely no sound. It's a completely unacknowledged platform, being quietly tested in the dead of night without a single word of confirmation from the Pentagon.
So the crucial point is this: what exactly ties the Delta Wing, the RAT-55, and this silent triangle together? It reveals that the Air Force isn't just testing a few cool new airplanes. They're testing an entirely new military doctrine. A doctrine built on operating completely unseen and untracked, surviving in highly contested airspace, and defeating the world's most advanced enemy radar systems. They're quietly laying down the groundwork to maintain American air superiority for the next 50 years. And honestly, this brilliantly illustrates the true legacy of Area 51. For 7 decades, while the public has been looking out for flying saucers and watching movies about alien invasions, real dedicated engineers have been relentlessly and quietly building the actual future of stealth. Their unglamorous, iron-willed work is what actually keeps the world safer. But with the pace of testing clearly accelerating right now, as the skies above Nevada grow busier and busier, you really have to wonder, what else is hiding in the dark? Thanks so much for joining me for this explainer, and keep your eyes on the skies.